Good morning, students. Today we will study about the principle of negative voltage feedback in amplifier. Now, this is the diagram amplifier with feedback circuit. Now, a feedback amplifier has two parts. First is amplifier and second is feedback circuit. And the feedback circuit usually consists of resistors and return a fraction of output energy back to the input. So this is the amplifier and its gain is AV and this is the feedback circuit and fraction MV is again return back to the input. Now the following points are worth noting. That first is when negative voltage feedback is applied, the gain of the amplifier is reduced. On applying the negative voltage feedback, the gain of the amplifier is reduced. Second is when negative voltage feedback is employed, the voltage actually applied to the amplifier is extremely small. When negative voltage feedback is employed, the voltage actually applied to the amplifier is extremely small. Third is in a negative voltage feedback circuit, the feedback fraction MV is always between 0 and 1. Fraction will be between 0 and 1. And fourth is the gain with feedback is sometimes called closed loop gain, while the gain without feedback is called open loop gain. The gain with feedback is called closed loop gain and gain without feedback is known as open loop gain. Now next is gain of negative voltage feedback amplifier. This is the circuit for feedback amplifier. Now consider negative voltage feedback amplifier as shown in above figure. The gain of the amplifier without feedback is AV. AV, this is clear that AV is the amplifier. AV is the gain of the amplifier without feedback. Now negative feedback is then applied by feeding a fraction of MV of the output voltage E naught back to the input of amplifier. Then actual input to the amplifier will be EG minus MV into E naught. Actual input to the amplifier is equals to EG minus MV into E naught. This is clear in the diagram that actual input is equals to EG minus MV into E naught. The output E naught must be equal to the input voltage EG minus MV into E naught multiplied by AV of the amplifier. So we can write AV into EG minus MV into E naught is equals to E naught. On solving the equation we get E naught upon EG is equals to AV upon 1 plus AV into MV. And AVF is equals to E naught upon EG is equals to AV upon 1 plus AV MV. So this is AVF is equal to E naught upon EG is known as voltage gain with negative feedback. This is the voltage gain with negative feedback. So when negative voltage feedback is applied, the gain is reduced by factor 1 plus AV MV. This is clear from this equation that AVF will be less than AV. Now next is feedback circuit. The function of the feedback circuit is to return a fraction of the output voltage to the input of the amplifier, and figure below shows the feedback circuit of negative voltage feedback amplifier. It is essentially a potential divider, consists of resistances R1 and R2, and the output voltage of the amplifier is fed to this potential divider, which gives the feedback voltage to the input. This is what is feedback circuit? It is the essentially a potential divider, consists of resistances R1 and R2. This is the feedback circuit. Now it is clear that from the figure that voltage across R1 will be equal to E naught upon R1 plus R2 into R1. Voltage across R1 is equals to E naught upon R1 plus R2 into R1, and feedback friction MV is equals to voltage across R1 divided by E naught, and this will be equal to R1 divided by R1 plus R2. Friction, feedback friction is equals to R1 divided by R1 plus R2.